Hello everyone, welcome along. This is Space Dave Live episode number 17. Thank you for joining us tonight. So my name is Dave, and with us tonight we've got a few people out here in our live studio audience. Welcome everyone. And in the back there is Floyd, our production assistant for tonight. So let's have a look at our program, shall we? We'll get stuck straight into it. It doesn't look like much, but I think we can get a good hour's show out of tonight. So tonight, after all the introduction and stuff, we will be looking at various news. There's a few things going on with various space agencies, so we'll just have a quick mention of a bunch of things happening. And of course, this week is the anniversary of the Apollo 11 first landing on the moon with people. I'm sure you've seen it in the news. It's been pretty well covered, I think. There's certainly a lot of talk about this anniversary, so that's pretty cool. With the questions and discussion tonight, we may have a bit of a chat about the moon hoax theory. We'll see how we go. I've certainly been getting that a lot in the last week or so. I don't know about you guys, but there's been plenty of talk about, did we actually really go to the moon or not? So maybe we might clarify some of that tonight. Before we get started with that, of course, we need to talk about our competition. So the competition tonight, tell you what, let's just do a quick little bit of background for this before we go into it. I want you to imagine a solar system outside of our solar system, another solar system with planets going around the sun, and you've got some gas giant planets with moons around them, and one of those moons is getting pulled away from the planet. So you've got a moon, sort of like the moons of Jupiter or Saturn, and one of them gets ripped away from its orbit around the planet and actually starts orbiting around the star. Instead of orbiting around the planet, it's now orbiting around the star. What would you call that thing? Would you still call it a moon? Would you call it a planet, now that it's just directly orbiting the star? Or would you call it something else? So the question for tonight is, what would you call a moon that has broken free of its planet? Does that make sense as a question? You guys in the audience help me out. Does that makes, you understand what I'm asking you for there? Yep, okay then, good as gold, and we will come back to that later in the show, and I will explain why I was asking you that question. So that's our competition tonight. So as always, you need to enter your competition in the live chat or the comments on Facebook if you're watching it live. If you're not watching it live, then you're too late, you've missed out. And as you should know by now, you have to write comp : space and then your answer. That's so that we can tell which ones are actually entries in the competition. If you don't write that, we will just go straight past that and we won't notice it. So make sure you write comp if you're entering the competition. Now last week, I was very good. I remembered to organise a prize and tell you what it was, but this week we're back to our normal routine when I completely forgot to do it and I have not organised a prize. So, dear me. What we could do is, does anyone in the audience feel like helping us out like Wendy did last time? If you do, what we need is someone to go over into the shop there behind us and just pick a prize worth sort of around about $20 to $30 or something like that. If no one wants to do that, then we will just come up with something later on. I'm sure you guys aren't going to be too concerned about that. So that's our competition. A couple of quick actually there's a few housekeeping things I just want to get to tonight. So let's try and get through it as quickly as we can. Of course, a quick mention of our Patreon and support. If you want to help keep the show going, we would much appreciate that. That's where you go to do that. But you all know how that works. Now, the next thing is the Google Hangouts. We still haven't got around to testing the Google Hangouts. I know a couple of you did last week try to join in with the Google Hangouts. Thank you very much for that. But I forgot to get back to it, didn't I? I said we would. We will try again tonight if we get time. I'm not really quite sure how that's going to pan out tonight, but I really would like to give that a bit of a blast. So I've got Google Hangouts just sort of sitting over on a monitor over there, and I'll try and keep an eye on it. But tell you what, if you want to do that, don't call in yet. Perhaps leave a comment in the chat, maybe about halfway through the show or something, and we'll try and give that a go. A couple of corrections from last week's show. I keep meaning to do this actually, to go back over the previous show, because I do get stuff wrong frequently, and it's supposed to be your guys' job actually to tell me if I'm getting something wrong. So please, if you see me getting something wrong, don't be shy, don't think you're going to hurt my feelings or anything. Please do post a comment in the chat and correct me. What did I do wrong last week? I said the Russians were the only country putting people in space at the moment. Well, that's not really right, is it? China's doing it, and certainly others are going to be getting on board. So yeah, anyway, I think that's enough of that. And just one other quick thing: when we talked about New Zealand space research last week, we asked whether New Zealand should be investing more money in fundamental science research, and I said that I didn't think New Zealand had been pulling our weight in terms of funding of scientific research. I just wanted to clarify that there are plenty of people in New Zealand doing really, really good scientific research, fundamental research, and others. And I think we are pulling our weight there. It's really an issue of government funding that I'm concerned about. I'm still of that opinion. I don't think our government is really spending enough money or interested enough in funding basic, fundamental research. So that's enough about that. Now we got, let's see, let's have a quick look at the chats actually. Let's see what's going on in here. Hi everyone. Nice to have all you guys on board tonight. Ian, Janet, Casey, Fletcher, Aroha. I hope you're feeling better, Aroha. I hope you will be feeling better soon. Kalman, Hayley, Stephanie, Clearly Clever, Tristan, thank you guys. I was looking out for Dominic. So look, tell you what, if anyone notices that Dominic is on board tonight, I've just got another link I want to show him about auroras that he's been hassling me about for ages. So yep, we'll do that. So, right, so I would like to say a quick shout out to James, 5-year-old James, who is watching the show, staying with Nana and Pa this week in Tauranga, and he wanted you to say hello. So I hope you are watching, James. Thank you for tuning in tonight. I hope you enjoy the show. It's awesome to have you on board. Right, so that was that. Now, how are we looking? Oh, we've got a prize, have we? It looks like we've got a prize. Who picked our prize for us tonight? Thank you very much for doing that. And our prize is, actually this is a good prize. Nice pick, thank you for that one. Stargazing for Dummies. I'm sure you're all familiar with this series of books, and it's a great book. Yeah, you probably can't really see too much in there. But lots and lots of stuff for the noob, but also for the reasonably experienced astronomer. It's a big book, there's a lot to it. So that's a really good prize, that one. So that's what's up for grabs tonight, and we can post that anywhere. So we'll get back to that later on in the show. Now I wanted to tell you about a couple of things, or a few things that we've got new at the Space Centre here this week. So let me just grab a couple of things here. One of them was we had Cherry Roundthwaite came in and dropped off a couple of things during the week. Thank you very much, Cherry. I love getting presents. Who doesn't? We got this really cool VHS Apollo video. Perfect timing for this stuff. And look at this one, a really neat National Geographic from, it was actually December 1969, but with all the, I think this was the first National Geographic with all the good photos from the moon and everything. So a lovely National Geographic. Thank you very much for that one. We've got some new Lego. Now Floyd made all these actually. I should have got you to show these off, Floyd. But anyway, so you know there's been a whole bunch of new Lego stuff come out to do with space, and you know how much I love Lego. So there's some really awesome things here, including this spacecraft, which is inspired by NASA's Mars mission, upcoming Mars mission with the really cool stuff inside it. So there was that, a little Mars rover that goes with it. It's actually pretty good, and it's got the little helicopter on it like they're designing for the next Mars mission. So these are actually based on, or it says inspired by, NASA's mission. So we got the Mars mission there, and this gorgeous one here with a little spacecraft there, and this is inspired by NASA's Gateway that we've been talking a lot about. So this is the kind of miniature space station that NASA is planning to have orbiting the moon. And the idea is that this will help people get down to the moon and back up again. So there's the Gateway. You can see the little astronaut floating around on there, or grabbing hold of the handlebars of the bars there. And there's even, you can kind of see it, the little Astro Bee robot there. Remember the Astro Bee robot that we've been talking about? So you take all the tops off here, and there's lots of stuff going on inside. It's got a really cool little airlock. Awesome piece. We don't yet have that beautiful lunar lander, but we're going to get it. So there you go. That was the Lego. And there's one more thing I wanted to show you. And this is from an anonymous fan of the show who has sent us some Rocket Lab mission patches. Look at these. Aren't they awesome? Genuine mission patches from Rocket Lab. So I've actually had a couple of comments about them already. They've just been up on our display in the New Zealand display around there, and people have noticed. So I know you wanted to remain anonymous. Thank you very much for that gift. That's going really well so far. Now, I think, was that all the housekeeping I wanted to get through? I think it was, and I think, oh no, there's one more thing. This only just happened late this afternoon. So, if you've been in here recently and been keeping up with what we're doing with our virtual reality, you know that we used to have an Oculus Rift, we've had some Oculus Go headsets for a long time, and now we've just got a couple of Oculus Quests, which are the VRs that are untethered, so you're not actually stuck to a computer with a cable. You do have proper virtual hands, so you can grab things and move around, but there's one application that we haven't been able to get for it, and we didn't know if we were going to be able to or not. The good news is Floyd discovered this afternoon that it is available for the Quest, and we downloaded it, and it is Mission ISS, and I'm so stoked. Honestly, this is just the coolest space VR app. It does look like this. This is from the app, but honestly, this is just awesome. I reckon it's probably the best fact-based space VR application that I've ever used. It's pretty simple, really. You're just floating around inside the International Space Station. There's a couple of things that you can do there. You can get to control the robot arm and some other stuff, but most of it's pretty basic. If you're really game, you can go outside on an EVA or spacewalk. And it's hilarious watching people do that. Once they go outside, you can see them, they're terrified and they're gripping on, white-knuckled, and it really is very intense when you first go out there. So we've got Mission ISS going. I'm hoping that we will actually get it going within the next day or so for the public. There is an extra charge for using that one, and you need to allow a little bit of time for it, and I actually recommend that you make a booking if you want to use the Mission ISS, but highly recommended. And if you've got a VR system, not really the Oculus Go. It was a bit rubbish on Oculus Go actually, just because of the Oculus Go has only got 3 degrees of freedom and stuff, but on the Quest or on the Oculus Rift or any other one that you've got proper hand controls and 6 degrees of freedom, Mission ISS, it's free and you feel like you're in microgravity. You really do. It's the best microgravity experience I've ever tried. Anyway, you can tell I'm really excited about that one. You've got to come in and try it. It's so cool. Right, so that's definitely all the housekeeping we wanted to talk about, so it's time to talk about some space news. Now, one just quick thing that I heard this afternoon, I don't have any images or anything for, I noticed that the Sky and Telescope magazine, which has been around, I'm sure, since the 1940s, every amateur astronomer from the last few decades will know about that magazine. It's actually gone bankrupt. That's the bad news, but the good news is that it has been acquired by the American Astronomical Society. So I know that there will be a lot of you out there that have followed and bought that magazine for a long time now. So that's just a quick update on that. I think they're doing really well to stay publishing, actually, to be honest, in this day and age. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say about that. Now, of course, it's Apollo week, isn't it? We're coming up to the anniversary of the Apollo moon landings. So I wanted to remind you about this website. I think, was it last week or a couple of weeks ago, I told you about the Apollo 11 in real time website. So all the links for all of these things are in the show notes, of course. So you go to this website and you've got 2 options here. You can, the idea is that you follow along with the entire mission from launch right through to the landing and EVA and stuff. So you can either click T-1 minute, so that just joins the mission 1 minute before launch, and it takes you back exactly to when that happened, or you can click on now, which we will do actually, and this takes you back exactly 50 years ago from now. So 50 years ago from now, they've already launched, of course, and this shows you everything that would have been happening exactly 50 years ago, what the Earth would have looked like. It shows you some shots of the moon, it gives you a status report. Actually, let's see if we've got any audio happening there. So a lot of it, you're just hearing this sort of thing, a bit of sort of staticky stuff in the background. It doesn't sound like there's any real communication going on there right now. But you can get to hear them talking, and you can see the transcripts down here. So it's quite fascinating. We've had it going here at the Space Centre just during the daytime, just during our public open day, just on the big screen. And every now and again, you just hear a little bit of a chatter between them. So at this point, where are they? Their distance from Earth is about 150,000 kilometres. So getting on towards halfway towards the moon, I guess. So go and check that out, and if you can, just have it going in the background on a screen, and it really gives you a feel for sort of how the mission unfolds over the few days that they're going to the moon. So it's a really, really cool website. They've done a fantastic job of it. Shame there's not really any other audio happening there at the moment or anything else. I'm not sure where they would have been at what's it saying? Crew status, the command module, docked with the lunar module, sleeping. Right, there you go, so they're sleeping now. I was hoping they'd be awake because they were having a sleep this afternoon when we were listening, but looks like they're still having a bit of a sleep, so we'll just pause that there. So go and check that one out. Very, very cool website, very well done. Right, now, I'm thinking we might get back to talk more about the whole Apollo anniversary later on, but let's get through some other stuff. So you might have seen in the news, and there's been quite a bit of talk about this, that Rocket Lab is preparing to, or has been given a contract to launch a 3D printing spacecraft. A lot of the news is reporting that Rocket Lab, or sort of implying that Rocket Lab has made the spacecraft and Rocket Lab is going to be doing 3D printing in space. Now, Rocket Lab has been very innovative in terms of their 3D printing and stuff, but just to be clear, this is not actually Rocket Lab's mission themselves to do this 3D printing in space. They're just being the launch provider for it. So they're launching the thing into space. They didn't actually make it. So that's what Rocket Lab does mainly. Their main core business is just launching other people's things into space, although they do make some of their own stuff now, and of course their new Photon space satellite bus, I guess you would call that. But look, this is the thing that they are talking about launching. So it's made by a company called Made in Space. This is the satellite after it's been launched in the initial deployment. Made in Space is a company that's actually been doing 3D printing in space for quite a while now. They've been doing some stuff on the ISS. What's happening here is that they're actually, that beam in the middle there with the solar panels on either side, the beam is being 3D printed as it's being deployed. So that's the big difference here. So pretty cool, eh? So look, honestly, I don't really know an awful lot about the technology and what's going on here, but obviously there is some form of 3D printer in there, and it's actually 3D printing the beam. I'm pretty sure it's just the beam that is being printed. That is the end of that video, and I gather that the solar panels on the side must have already been there and they come out with the thing. Sorry about that, I wish I knew a bit more about that. But 3D printing, big stuff in space, eh? It's going to make a big difference. Apparently it's going to be so much more efficient. These solar panels are much more efficient than existing ones, and being able to 3D print stuff in space is going to help an awful lot, I think. So there you go, that is, I'm not quite sure when they're launching that. It's not yet, it's a while away yet, but we'll get back to that hopefully when it happens. I want to keep moving on with news because I don't want to muck around for too long and run out of time again. So here's a quick one. This is Virgin Orbit that we just talked about recently. Just a quick mention of this one because they have now done their drop test. So that's really all we need to say about that. So this is the launch system where the orbital vehicle is that thing there that looks like a missile there or a little rocket, is underneath the plane, and it goes up and it just gets dropped out of the bottom of the plane. So they've done that drop test. That went very well. And their next major test, presumably, I'm pretty sure, oh look there, you can see it just dropping down there. They've got it on loop or bouncing loop, obviously. It doesn't go back to the plane, but there you go, that's what it looks like. So I guess the next thing will be a full orbital test, and I think they did say down here somewhere, I can't remember when it is, sorry, but can we see it there? Anyway, so it's looking good for a Virgin Orbit there. I need to keep moving on, got to stay focused. Right, the Indian Space Agency. Or the Indian Space Research Organisation, I should say. I think I'm just about ready to let them off the hook now, and because we've had a punitive ban on the Indians for a while now because they blew up that satellite earlier in the year, and I got very upset about it. And we've sort of slowly been bringing them back into the news, but they've got a lot of good stuff going on, so I think it's probably time to be talking more about them. So they've got this mission called, try and pronounce this, Chandrayaan-2, and it's a mission to the moon, so it must be it's their second lunar exploration mission. Now it has been delayed, unfortunately, and I don't know what the new launch date is going to be, but this is one to keep a real eye on, this one, because it's a cool mission. It's an orbiter, a lander, and a rover. So you send an orbiter to orbit around and around the moon. There's a lander that goes down onto the moon, and then it sort of lowers down a little ramp, and a little wee rover comes down off there and starts driving around and doing some research. I really hope that goes well, because it does look like a very cool mission. And the main objective of this one is looking for water. So where's the water, how much is there, and that should help us try and find and access some of the water. I don't think there's anything there at this stage, this is going back to when they thought they were going to launch. So they've said a technical snag was observed, and they've put it off. So we'll get back to that when we have a launch video for it. But speaking of launch videos, let's go and have a look at what the Russians have been up to. We're talking about this we've talked about it a couple of times just recently, I think. So this was what's it called? The Spectre, I've got to remember, RG, is it? Spectre RG. So this is their high energy launch. Is that video going? There you go. There you go. There wasn't really much audio with this one. It was just the actual launch itself. But it finally got off the launch pad. So the Russians have been having a few delays and technical problems with getting this up and running. But this is an interesting scientific mission to study X-rays and gamma rays, sort of high energy parts of the electromagnetic spectrum. So it's a really good, worthy scientific mission, and we're really happy to see the Russians finally get that off the launch pad. So well done, Roscosmos, the Russian space agency. So we'll get back to this story when they've fully deployed the whole satellite. These things usually take ages to actually start returning any scientific data, but we will definitely keep an eye on this one because it looks really interesting. So let's just stay with the Russians for a sec. There wasn't really anything more with the launch video there. That's pretty much all it was just the launch. But what was the other thing that they were doing? Right, they have got some plans. Just bear with me a sec while I find the website there. It was... right, so this is about 3D printing again. So the Russians have announced some plans that they want to 3D print some habitats or shelters on the moon. 3D printing, it's the way to go, isn't it? It's what everyone's talking about. This is really early days stuff here. So now the timeline is quite a long way away, but it is interesting that the Russians are now talking about the bigger picture and further ahead, and we're seeing a few announcements there. We just talked about some of their announcements last week about getting into reusable rockets and stuff. So this is just an artist concept there, and it's a long way away, but interesting that they are starting to make some slightly firmer plans and talking about timelines now. So they're planning a moon mission of some sort by around about 2030. So a bit behind the Americans, but not that much really. So they're talking about getting there by around about 2030, and from about 2035, that's when they want to start building this base. So as I say, it's a long way away yet, but still nice to see them talking about it. Now, kind of related to what we were talking about before, NASA has also announced the launch contract, and I think it's going to SpaceX, wasn't it? Yep, so this is another X-ray mission that they are launching, and it's going on 2021. We'll get back to this closer to the time, but this is just another, actually this is a slightly different one. Link in the show notes if you want to go and learn about that, but another X-ray observatory in space. So very cool. Right, let's keep moving along. Got to keep moving. We're still with NASA though. Oh no, what's this one? Okay, we'll do this one now. So this is an update on SpaceX's Starhopper. So we've been talking about that quite a lot. Now, there's been a bit of a mystery about exactly when they're going to start their testing again. So remember they did that tethered test that we looked at a while ago, and we've been waiting very patiently for them to get another tethered test, hoping to get a little bit higher off the ground and see where the next step is. Well, apparently they're actually gearing up now to do an untethered test. So that's quite a big step forward. So nothing holding it down anymore. I'm not quite sure how high the next test is going to be launching, but they are talking about having a untethered test of up to 20 kilometers later on. Not the next test, but later on. So that's an enormous step, 20 kilometers. That's what, a fifth of the way to space. So, wow. Big things happening there. So no other news right now, but they are planning on live streaming that next test that they do. So I'll definitely let you know if they're going to be doing that, because that'll really be worth watching live. So this is just so exciting, this new spacecraft. Right, what I was going to get back to just before, I think I may have lost it actually. Drat, I have too. Oh no, let's go and have a look at this. I wanted to mention Mars 2020. So, is it going? Here we go. So this is Mars 2020. I think I can full screen that actually, just bear with me. There you go. So this is a time lapse. This is Mars 2020, the mission that's set to launch next year, and it's these. I guess it's the follow-up to Curiosity, and it is very heavily based on Curiosity. So what you're seeing there, this is at JPL in California. So the rover there is getting its wheels. That's what we're looking at here. So all those people there gathering around the wheels, they're attaching the wheels to that side of the rover, and after this they'll attach the wheels to the other side. So that's the rover in the middle there, and this is obviously a big step forward. So I thought this was a really cool video to show you, getting all the wheels ready. So yeah, it's supposed to be launching next year. Well, I'm sure it will be. Landing in February 2021, and it's basically, this one is doing a lot of work looking for signs of life, either now or in the past. So it's got a few really cool instruments on it, really interesting scientific stuff that they're looking for. One that I really like actually is almost a side mission of it, really. Looks like that's the end of that video. Let's just go back and freeze frame it somewhere. There's an experiment on there to try and convert some Martian air into breathable air for humans. So it's only a very small scale experiment that they're doing, but it would be really awesome, wouldn't it, to have a vehicle on Mars actually converting air into breathable air for humans. That would obviously be quite a milestone to get that done. So we will be talking much more about the Mars 2020 mission as it gets closer to launch time, and I'm sure when it does launch, we'll have a big party about with the launch. But remember, it takes a long time to get there. It won't be until 2021 when it actually gets there. Righto, how's that time going? Okay, so we're still talking about some missions from some of these other countries. I wanted to mention Hayabusa 2. We have talked about that. So this is from, was it Japan Times? I think it was, yeah, the Japan Times. So Hayabusa 2, we have talked about that previously on the show. In fact, I think I've got an older photo that I showed you earlier on. This is a cool photo of the asteroid that this robotic probe is orbiting around right now. And on that photo, you can actually see the shadow there of the spacecraft as it orbits. Now, this spacecraft has already touched down once and gathered a sample to be returned to Earth, and they've just done it again. They've got a second sample to be returned back to Earth, which is really quite an achievement. So good on you, Japan. That's a really nice result, and we'll be looking forward to seeing that come all the way back to Earth. And we've talked about it a lot in the past, so we probably don't need to go over that anymore. We're going to keep heading further out, actually a lot further out now. I don't think there's anything else in the solar system we want to talk about. I want to talk about this thing here. So, moon-forming circumplanetary disk discovered around a young planet in distant star system. I've got a closer, well, I just enlarged the photo so we can kind of see what's going on here. Now, this is the ALMA, a large millimeter, sub-millimeter array, so radio telescopes. This is a closer view of it. What we are looking at here is a new solar system in the process of being born. Right in the middle of that is a new star, and the disk around it is all the dust and gas that sort of ends up floating around. And so this goes back to the nebula hypothesis, our understanding of how solar systems are born. And we think that our solar system was born in essentially the same way. So it starts off with this just big cloud of dust and gas floating around in space. Usually it would get perturbed in some way. It's all sort of spinning around, and eventually it all spins around and sort of flattens out. And you've got the original star, or the star right in the middle there. And you've got a bit of a gap around here where some of these new things have eaten up a lot of that gas, or sort of sucked it in with their gravity, and these are newly formed planets. So it looks like we've got one here and one over there. This is stunning stuff, that we can get actual images of these. Remember, it's radio images, not visible light, but it doesn't matter. So the really cool thing about this one though is we think what's going on here is with this planet, that's actually an accretion disk around the planet. So that's like a mini version of the whole thing. That looks like a new moon being formed around that planet. And that's the first time that we've got any direct images of something like that happening. So look, I just can't believe that we've come to a point where we can see this sort of stuff happening. When I was a kid, I just assumed that we would never be able to see anything like this because these things are just too far away, too faint, and just too difficult to observe directly. But the fact that we can now directly observe this sort of thing is just incredible, and it's really helping to cement our understanding of how solar systems are born. We've got a whole range of images of new solar systems being formed in our galaxy now. So this is the stuff that I kind of live for in a lot of ways. I mean, you know how much I love robots and rockets and all the tech and all the other really cool, exciting stuff, but it's that kind of thing, it's the understanding of how the universe works that I think is just the most exciting of all, and I'm just really excited about seeing that one. So, link in the show notes if you want to go and learn more about that. What we should do is just a quick reminder of our competition tonight. So, our competition is actually it's kind of related to that one, isn't it? That's not why we came out with this, but what would you call a moon that has broken free of its planet? So let's imagine, we'll just go back to that image actually. Imagine that this solar system is many millions of years, hundreds of millions, perhaps billions of years, no, maybe not go that far, hundreds of millions of years perhaps after this, and that moon that we see forming around there has actually broken away from its planet and is now orbiting its star. What would you call that? Would you still call it a moon? Would you call it a planet? Or what would you do with that? Let's have a look in the chats and see what's going on here. So let's just scroll back up the top. Casey thinks a rogue orbiter. That's about an asteroid. Actually, that's a good one, an orbiter. So I'm just quickly whiz through the competition entries. A non-planet, that's not a bad one. Planetoid. To do a wanderer, that's a nice name. Thanks, Tony. Okay, I'm just trying to find the competition entries now. It would Harry's saying it would depend on the specs, okay? And you're not keen on what the IAU thinks about it. Fair enough, Harry, good on you. Lost. Liz thinks it should be called Lost. Nice, another asteroid down there. Missing asteroid. Please help me back to my planet. Okay. Somewhat big hazard, says Alan. Thanks for that, Alan. And another rogue moon. That's not a bad one. Rogue celestial body. Kelly. How you going, Kelly? Right, I'm just Luna Gaia. But you guys, Porcelina. Ooh, get back to that one. I might be giving something away there. Luna Star. D-Line. Thank you, Alan. Simply drifting along. Okay, I think some of you might know a little bit about where we're going with that whole question there. Anyway, was there anything else that we needed to talk about with the chats there? Thank you guys for your competition entries. Where did you... Oh, Alan, you're not here, of course, Alan, today. I'm just so used to you being here, Alan. I looked around to try and find you before. Thank you, though. Right, ooh. Clearly Clever says, Dave, in about 6 hours, the US Senate is holding a hearing with NASA about the Artemis program. Look, honestly, I don't know actually what's going on with that. But as you know, we've been talking about the funding before, and as you know, I'm a little bit pessimistic about what's going to be happening with the funding for the Artemis program. So this is the program to get back to the moon, in case anyone's not up to speed with that. And the concern is that NASA is going to need something between $6 and $8 billion extra dollars per year to make this happen. And with the Democrats in the House and all the rest of the political stuff, I'm just, I don't see it smooth sailing. I really don't. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out of that. Sorry, Clearly Clever. Aren't you 4 years old? That's a very advanced question for 4 years old. That's what you told me last week. Alan, I repeated the competition. Hopefully you got the competition. Thanks. Stephanie's saying, well, who's going to the moon? Everyone's going to the moon. It's all happening, isn't it? It's all on for young and old, going back to the moon. Who have we got? Let's see if we can remember. We've got, obviously, the Americans talking about going there. The Chinese have got robotic stuff there. The Indians are going there with robots, and they want to send people there as well. Of course, the Chinese have got plans to send people. The Russians, who have I missed? That's all I can think of at the moment. But, well, of course, SpaceX, I guess. There's private enterprise heading back to the moon. It's really happening. We've talked a lot about this whole race to get back to the moon, and it's all on. It really is. I reckon over maybe the next 10 years or so, we're really going to start seeing some stuff about getting back to the moon. Now, Casey's just finished Mike Collins' book about his career. Great read. Thanks for that, Casey. Buzz Aldrin may have been the second man on the moon, but he was the first to have a pee there. That's an interesting tidbit. Thanks for that, Casey. Right, Dominic, I've got something to show you. What's the competition again? Please tell me. Well, hopefully you caught that. Actually, we'll come back to it in a sec just to go over it again. Right, Aroha is mentioning the Kim Stanley Robinson's latest book, Red Moon. Yeah, good series, isn't it? Thank you for that. Right, yeah, so Stephanie's just mentioning, what would you call a planet that has broken free, it's actually a moon that has broken free from the planet that it is orbiting and is now just orbiting the star instead of orbiting a planet that is going around the star. Righto, party time that. Hi Luke and Kyle. Okay, I just need to whiz through these a bit faster, don't I? Otherwise we're going to spend all night here. Sorry about that, guys. Gypsy Planet, that was a good one. Who said that? Tristan. Nice. It's Samswords in Fiji. Hope you're having a good time over there. Crowdfund it, Luke says. Good on you. Righto, so we did talk about the competition, so we're okay with that. What was the other thing I wanted to talk about next? I've lost it, I can't remember. Let's just carry on. I'll go back to my notes and see what we were up to here. Right, now Troy sent, oh no, I know what it was. Sorry, it was Dominic. I wanted to go back. Dominic, we've been talking about auroras with you. Now, Alan Little sent me a link just late this afternoon, so I just wanted to show you that because we talked about that last week. Sorry, it's this one here. This is, remember we were talking about auroras and I mentioned about how you can see them from the South Island, and you can go online and look up how you can increase your chances of getting a good sighting of the Southern Lights or the aurora. Well, the link for this is in the show notes. Thank you very much for that, Alan, and it goes through and tells you exactly what you can expect and how to go about trying to get a good sighting of the Southern Lights or the auroras. So thank you for that one. Now, where was I up to back here? We've been through Mars 2020 and everything. Now, here's another thing that Troy sent me in. Troy Mitchie, thank you for that, Troy. This is about the exoplanets, so kind of what we were just talking about, but this is a neat time-lapse video. Let's just play it actually and hope that we will get away with this without any copyright hits. So this is a time-lapse. It's a map of the galaxy, or I guess the universe as seen from Earth. I'll just full screen that, and it shows you over time the discovery of exoplanets. So you can see them slowly popping into view there. They started in the 1990s, and of course it starts ramping up more recently. So all of those circles and everything that you can see there, those are highlighting stars that we believe have planets going around them. So these are other solar systems that we have either confirmed or we're fairly confident should have other planets going around them. So there's a lot, and you can see just how much it's ramping up. And where is it? Over here, that will presumably be Kepler. I haven't confirmed that, but that would have to be where Kepler discovered all those exoplanets. Kepler, the telescope Kepler, is responsible for about half of all of these. So look at them all. These are the things that I was talking about before where I thought we'd never see any in my lifetime, and look at them now. We're up to about 4,000 exoplanets, so just amazing stuff. Very cool. Right, so that was that, and still out in the wider universe. I need to full screen that. This is an interesting discovery, and I'm not sure if we'll learn much more about this in the foreseeable future, but a pair of supermassive black holes have been discovered on a collision course. So if you've been following stuff that we've talked about in the past to do with gravitational waves, black holes colliding and that sort of thing, it's something that's happening in the distant universe fairly regularly, and it's a fairly new area of astronomy, and we have seen some fairly clear evidence of black holes emerging, but this is the first time that we have actually got some clear evidence of supermassive black holes on a collision course. So these are the black holes that you would typically see in the center of spiral galaxies, like the Milky Way galaxy, like our galaxy, and it looks like two of them are on a collision course. The bad news is that I think it's going to take billions of years for them to actually collide, so don't just sit there and wait for it to happen. It's not going to happen anytime soon, but really interesting to see that. Right, so we're actually just about at the end of the news, and I'm hoping that we might be able to spend a little bit more time. I tell you what, if you're thinking about getting in on the Google chat, I have no idea how it's going to work because we still haven't tested it, but if you're thinking about doing that, get on board with it now and get ready to call in. Now, here's something completely out of left field. I'm sure some of you guys have heard of this. This is kind of bizarre. Back to UFOs. It's kind of. We've been talking a little bit about them quite a lot recently. Who's seen this? Any of you guys out in the audience tonight, have you seen anything about this idea about storming Area 51? You saw that, Carsten? Yeah, so the plan is actually started as a joke, and I think it's still a joke. Let's just be clear about this. But someone came up with this idea of storming Area 51, where apparently all the aliens are being held and all the alien technology and everything. The idea is that if everyone goes... What's that, sorry?
Alex, of course.
Right, yep. So the idea is we all go and storm it. And look, how many people are going? So far there's been 1.4 million people have signed up, and they're all go and storm Area 51 and release all the aliens. Well, good luck with that one. I'm not sure I would be started to storm a military base, but there's been heaps and heaps of stuff all over. It seems to have captured people's imagination. I think there's been heaps of memes and stuff about it. But I'd be quite fascinated to know if anyone actually does show up to try and actually see if they think they really can storm a top secret military base in the States. I wouldn't hold out much hope, but we might get back to that because it's not until September, I think, that the 20th of September that they're planning on doing it. So if you're keen, go and look it up on Facebook, go and sign up, go and storm Area 51. One last thing I'm going to show you here. Where is it? No, I've lost it. Oh, that's no good. Oh no, it's over here, that's right. This is a quick science fiction thing for all you science fiction fans. We have talked about it before. I just wanted to show you this because I thought it's such a beautiful photo. Star Trek Picard, coming late 2019. I'm not sure if or how we are going to be able to see it in New Zealand. If anyone knows, could you please post a comment in the chat? Because I really, really hope that we are actually going to see it in New Zealand.
Probably on Amazon Prime.
Sorry, what was that, Carsten?
Probably on Amazon Prime.
Amazon Prime, you think? Okay, well, we'll look out for that, hopefully. I don't actually know anything about Amazon Prime, really. I don't have it myself, but we can get it here in New Zealand, eh?
Yeah, you can get a 4-week trial.
So a 4-week trial?
Use that.
Okay, then, so the plan there is to wait until they're all up there and then go and get your trial and binge watch it, I guess, isn't it?
That's my plan.
Are you guys, sorry, do you have Amazon Prime?
Yeah, we've got it. Come around.
I'm going to hold you to that. Thank you so much. I will. That sounds perfect. Okay, can I come around and binge watch them all at once? Okay, I'm really looking forward to that one. Actually, the other thing with that, there was just a little thing, I couldn't really see it myself, but apparently if you look very closely with the dog, and you can kind of just see, if you zoom right in on its little tag there, it's got the little Enterprise insignia there, and apparently, I couldn't quite make it out myself, but apparently it looks like it says number 1 on it. So perhaps Picard has a dog called number 1. Which I think is pretty cool. That's neat. Okay, that's it. Let's have a look and see if anything else is happening in the chats. Right, Rox is saying, it seems like yesterday everyone was saying the moon was boring and nothing to see there. You did right about that. Nick Minute, the moon is flavour of the month. What happened? There must be money to be made out of it to excite entrepreneurs. I've always loved the moon. I hope they don't spoil her. You've made a whole bunch of really good points in a short comment there, Rox. So what happened there? I think a bunch of things have happened. One of them is that the technology to get into space access has been changing all around. With SpaceX right through to Rocket Lab here in New Zealand. I mean, Rocket Lab can now, has the capability of launching very small stuff, but that would be able to get to the moon. Of course, we've got SpaceX, we've got Blue Origin, a whole bunch of private companies developing new rockets to get us back there. We're getting reusable rockets, so it's getting cheaper, it's getting more efficient, and it's getting much more accessible. So the moon is the obvious place to go after low Earth orbit. So I think that's one of the things that's actually just becoming much more achievable to get there. I think the fact that the Chinese have been making slow but very steady progress towards getting back to the moon and other places as well, I think that's put a little bit of a rocket under some politicians in the States. I don't think it's really had its full impact yet, but I suspect that if the Chinese were to have people walking around on the moon, or they looked like they were getting much closer to having people there, I think that would sort of provide a lot of impetus as well. So there's a couple of things there, a couple of other things I was thinking of but have escaped my mind now. That's certainly a couple of big things that have happened. And like you were saying that the moon was boring. Well, it's a little bit like Mars actually, I think. When the Viking missions went to Mars and made it look a little bit boring, people tended to have lost interest a little bit. But over recent years, we've discovered a lot more about the moon. The fact that there is water ice on the moon, there are perhaps commercial opportunities on the moon. I'm not entirely sold on that myself at this stage. You might hear a lot of talk about things like mining helium-3 on the moon, which is certainly a possibility, but I don't think that's viable anytime soon. Right, yeah, you're saying competition always spurs people on. So I think it will, I think like America is not going to want to be left behind and seeing the Russians, the Indians, the Chinese, private companies all starting to establish a presence on the moon. The Americans will want to be there. They'll want to be part of that. And I guess the same applies to other countries as well. If they think that they can get there, why not? So, and the money to be made out of it. Look, I'm not so sure, as I say, about the commercial opportunities on the moon yet. Maybe I think there are a few opportunities there. If you could get on the moon and you could mine things that you could sell to other companies, so if you could mine the water on the moon and make that available to other countries for their missions, possibly. I actually think space tourism is going to be a big part of going back to the moon. SpaceX has already tried to get a mission to go and at least go a flyby around the moon, but the guy that was going to do that has run out of money apparently. But I expect to see space tourism being a part of the driving thing going back to the moon. So anyway, that's that. Right, so when is the couch auction? Do I know about the couch auction? Stephen, sorry, I'm not. Does anyone else know what we're talking about with the couch auction? I'm not quite sure what that's referring to. Sorry, if you can clarify that, maybe we could talk about that. Janet's saying, hey Dave, lots of space stuff going on in the news this week, isn't there? There's heaps. Janet, did you know that you won the prize last week? I'm not sure if I found, if I've got a private message from you letting me know how to get you your prize. Could you please get hold of me again? Because if you have, I've lost it. Sorry about that. Okay, was that Rogue One? Nat, what a good name, Rogue One. How many times are you entering the competition, guys? It doesn't actually matter. Actually, I should ask now, Floydie, how are you going with getting the competition stuff ready? Because we probably should be thinking about that, getting that underway.
I'm ready.
Oh, good on you, thank you. You still got time though, everyone. If you want to enter the competition, you have still got time. And look, I tell you what, if you want to try and contact us on Google Hangouts, feel free to give it a try now. I have no idea how well it will go or what will happen, actually. To be honest, I've got Google Hangouts over here, and your guess is as good as mine. Right, is there anything else I need to address up here? It's got no flat earthers will storm Area 51. I think I'm actually getting a bit behind on all these comments. I don't think I can catch up with that, sorry. Send a flat earther to the moon. Now we've been across that a lot. I think it was Alan that often mentions that if you sent a flat earther into space, even that wouldn't convince them. And I think he probably is right. Flat earthers are so invested in what they think that absolutely any kind of evidence at all, including literal evidence of their own eyes and senses, would still be explained away in some way. And they would still think that they had been tricked somehow, that they'd been drugged or something like that. So I don't think that there is any way to convince a flat earther that the earth is not flat. Righto, so, okay, thanks everyone else for all your comments there. I better not get too sidetracked in having a look at all of them. I was wondering about whether we should have a quick talk about the moon hoax theory. We don't have a lot of time to talk about it now. I have been wondering about the idea of having a special show about it because it's the bane of my life. It really is. It's one of the things I hate most about my life is the moon hoax theory. I just get it all the time. So, and it just amazes me that even now, people still think that we didn't go to the moon, but feel so confident that they are right without having really done any kind of research. Now I know that we do get some people watching the show who think that we didn't go to the moon, and I don't want to be too nasty about it or too condescending or anything, but as you can see, I do get frustrated by the whole thing because it's actually not that hard to do a little bit of research and answer all of those questions. So I tell you what, does anyone in the chat, does anyone want to just quickly ask me any question at all about the moon hoax thing, about why they think we might not have gone to the moon? While you do that, what's that time? It's about 10 to 8. I'll just bring the chats up here. So Wiki's saying a moon hoax theory show. It's a big topic, so I think we probably do need, if we're going to cover it properly, we would have to do a whole show about it. I am about to do a rant. No, I'll stay calm. Thank you for that. Just breathe. Right, so yeah, K-Bolt, 44 says the moon landing hoax has been proven false. Now, I shouldn't really use the word theory, should I? It's just a habit, really, to be honest. It's the moon hoax idea or something, but I'll tell you what I might do. I might just bring up a couple of quick things to have a quick chat about. Oh, before I do that, does anyone in the audience want to make any comments or say anything at all about the moon hoax theory?
There's a question, why was the flag waving?
Oh, sorry, thank you for that. Someone has already asked a question. I knew you guys would be onto it. You guys are fast typers. You're good at this. Right, so they reversed the footage, they slowed the footage down. Okay, right, so that's an interesting question too. I was actually just reading something about that, Winky, not long ago, and explaining from a filmmaker's point of view about how that wouldn't actually work. The technology at the time, the film technology, wouldn't have actually shown what we've got now, but I don't have time to go into that right now. Chanel is saying that the flag wasn't waving, the flag was creased, and you are absolutely right. So let's see if I can just go and find a couple of pictures to back that up, because I have got a whole bunch of stuff. I'll tell you what, let's just quickly show you this image first, which goes through some of the main claims about the moon hoax theory. Why is the flag waving? Why are there missing stars? Lots of issues with the lights and shadows, props, inconsistent backgrounds, etc., etc. But the question was, and the answer was about the flag. So here's a typical kind of photo that you see showing a flag apparently waving. However, if you do look at that closely, you can see that that flag is not waving. It's not flapping around, it is creased. And I think that's fairly obvious just looking at that. So you can see a couple of things there. First of all, this crossbar that goes across the top there, that holds the flag out. So there's no issue of the flag actually being out. It's obviously just being held there. The question is all of this sort of wrinkling and stuff around here, or looks like it's waving, but again, when you look at it closely, you can see it's not. If you're still not convinced, let me show you another photo that was taken about a minute later, and I have superimposed the two on top of each other. So you can see, if you look at the astronaut there on the right, you can see the astronaut moving. The photo actually was just sort of slightly off to one side. But I've just lined them up so the flag is directly superimposed, and you can see that that flag has not moved. It's absolutely, definitely not waving. And you can see on each mission, make sure you don't get the missions confused. Make sure you're not confusing one Apollo mission with a different one. But you can, once the flag has been planted and it's settled down, the only time it moves is when the astronauts are holding it or putting it into the ground there. Once it's settled down, the flag actually stays like that. I'm pretty sure for all the other photos you will see from that mission, it always looks exactly the same. So it's very clearly not waving. So that's probably the most common one, I think, of all the questions about why, all the anomalies or whatever. So that would be the most common, and we could probably tackle a couple of the other very common ones. Porcelina is saying that the flag waving is a very common one. Rox, Mythbusters did a whole show on the moon hoax theory, and that's well worth looking up. Now, Winky, you're saying it looks photoshopped. The background lines are too sharp. That's actually not a bad observation as well, that the background photos look very sharp. Now, there's no atmosphere on the moon. That's why the backgrounds tend to look much sharper than why you would expect, because you're not seeing that kind of perspective, or it's a kind of perspective effect that you get when things that are further away, I'm not talking about perspective getting smaller, but things that are further away aren't as clear because of the atmosphere. Take away the atmosphere, you don't have that effect. What else have we got here? Theories of cities and archaeological structures on the moon. Okay, I don't have any pictures of that directly. I guess my comment to that would be, it's not hard to find images of formations on the moon or Mars or other places that look like they might be artificial. The face on Mars was a really common one for many years, but you can do the same thing on Earth. You can find plenty of geological structures on Earth that we know are natural formations that from a distance do look like they were artificial. If you've got 1 million different formations, then, statistically, some of them are going to look a little bit artificial. So Jonathan's asking about the Area 51 event on the 20th. No, it's not the 20th this month. It's the 20th of September. So what are my thoughts about the Area 51 event? Well, I think it's a joke, really. The whole thing was started as a joke. I can't really imagine I can't imagine a lot of people showing up to do it. However, it's become so popular and how do I say this without sounding... I don't want to be nasty about the type of people that I would expect to show up and do something like this. There are some people that think very differently than I do about these sort of things, and I would expect that some people probably will show up. In fact, I'd love to hear you guys' comments about this. What do you think is going to happen on that day? My best guess would be that we would get some people show up, but just sort of on the periphery, not actually trying to get in there, but just sort of showing up and hanging around and getting a feel to see what's going on, maybe see if other people are going to show up, maybe if they felt that there were enough people they might try a little bit of something. But I cannot for the life of me imagine anywhere near enough people to show up that they felt they had the kind of safety in numbers to actually make a push. Of course, let's be honest, you'd have to be a little bit nuts to try and charge a top secret United States military base where, all the signs say use of deadly force is authorized. I don't think I'd want to be charging that. And there are other things as well, let's be honest, if they really were hiding all the aliens there, you've given them till September the 20th to move it and hide it. So that's not a good part of your plan. So it doesn't seem to have been that well thought out. Of course, the other thing is, how do you actually organise enough people and give them enough time without also warning the army that you're coming? But that would be my best guess, that you're likely to get a few rubberneckers and some people serious about it. I would imagine that most people show up are actually just there for a laugh and to see if anyone else shows up, and maybe to try and get some video and that sort of stuff, because it would be a bit of a scoop if you could get some video of something really happening there and live streaming it. Does anyone in our audience tonight have any comments about what you expect to see?
Yeah, I might think that they launch an attack with drones. Lots of drones sending it over.
Right.
I think that your description's accurate if it was in New Zealand, but I think you underestimate what could possibly happen in the country that Area 51 is in.
Thank you very much for those comments. Very insightful. So, we will see what happens on the 20th. Let's see what the people in the chat are saying, because it looks like there's a bit of activity going on there, isn't there? Where do we get to? Sorry for those of you whose comments that I've missed. It is hard making sure that I've tried to see every single one. The blast crater interests me. That's the one thing I really want an answer to. So that question is about the moon hoax theory, and it's talking about why is there no blast crater on the moon? So if you... hang on, let me just, I think I'll bring up a picture this one will do nicely. This shows you the lunar module on the surface of the moon. That big thing at the bottom there, that is the main, the nozzle of the main engine there. So you can imagine that as the spacecraft is coming down and blasting out the bottom there, that it might make some kind of blast crater as it shoots out the bottom there, but we can't see any evidence of that there. So a couple of things there. First of all, in fact, you don't actually expect to see a blast crater there. These things were tested out on Earth, and we have vertical takeoff and landing craft on the Earth, and they don't go around making blast craters everywhere they go. They do sort of disperse some of the ground there, but they don't make blast craters, not even on Earth. Now what you're looking at here, this is an extremely lightweight vehicle. landing on a very low gravity body. So its rocket doesn't need to be anywhere near as powerful as those ones that we're talking about on the moon. But there's more to it than that. When you've got a rocket shooting out here on Earth, most of that dispersal is going to be caused by the air. So the rocket is pushing out and it's pushing air all around the place, and that's what makes everything move. On the moon, there is no air, so you're not getting that force pushing all of that out. So all you're getting is the actual molecules coming out of that engine, which is nowhere near what you would expect to see on Earth. What you would actually expect to see under the vehicle here is a very fine dispersal pattern, not any kind of big blast crater or anything like that. If we look very closely, that is exactly what we see. You can see here underneath the engine, you can see a fine dispersal pattern pushing all of the lunar regolith out of the way there. So again, that is what we expect to see. So these are all good questions. In fact, I mean, I try to make a point of not being too harsh on people, especially if they're just asking the genuine questions. I have no problem with that at all. In fact, it's great. One bonus of the whole moon hoax theory thing is that you actually do get to talk about some of the stuff and explain why it's like this. So it's really good to be asking those questions. What I don't like is when people come and get all cocky and, well, you know, you people are all just full of it and you're all lying and I can prove it. There's no blast crater. What about the radiation and all the rest of it? And okay, even that, I can live with that, but when they just don't back down and it gets a little bit ugly, that's when I don't like it. And we had one just not that long ago. Someone in our audience might actually remember this because she was there. There was a guy, do you remember? It was in one of the school groups that we had recently, and there was a guy who was quite bolshy about it actually, and that was really annoying. This was in our class time with a school trip, and he started making an issue that we didn't really go to the moon and wouldn't let it go, and I had to shut him down. It was very awkward actually. Anyway, that's enough of that one. So what else did we have about that? Was there any other questions about the moon? Actually, the flag is foil, not cloth. That's another interesting one. Thank you for that, Crookie. You've got to remember that everything about the moon landing is quite different. It's not what you expect here on Earth. So, assumptions that you would make don't apply out there. Right, Stephanie made a very good point. It's actually easier to go to the moon than invent the story. Right, so when they landed, why didn't moon dust fly everywhere? And there's camera. Right, so there's the same thing, clearly clever. Basically, when they landed, the moon dust didn't fly everywhere. I think we've probably covered that for you there. Right, so It's Sam's World has talked about that. And those stars in the footage, we should quickly mention that one, I suppose. That's a simple camera exposure issue. When you look at the surface of the moon, it's very, very bright. And so it's like taking photos in the snow. So your camera exposure is set for that, and the stars just aren't going to come out with those kind of settings. Occasionally, you actually can see some of the very bright stars in the background, but yeah, it's a simple camera exposure issue, and that's one that you can easily test out yourself, actually. Just set your camera up with daytime settings and try and take photos of the stars. It won't work. So, was there anything else here? Well, I've actually covered, your guys' questions have covered a lot of the common stuff. Right, I think there's a few other variations on some of those questions there. What about Buzz Aldrin's comments from NOCC on what he thinks is on the dark side of the moon? On the dark side, sorry, I'm not actually sure about his comments there. I'm aware of some other comments that have been a little bit controversial and seized on by moon hoax conspiracy theorists, but that's not what you're talking about there. So sorry, I actually don't know that one. We certainly know that Buzz Aldrin is very vocal, and we know what he thinks about people who think that we didn't land on the moon. He punches them. No, he only punched one guy, and to be fair, he was sorely provoked. So we won't be too hard on him there. Why go to a space museum if you think the moon landing was fake? Now look, that's a really good question, Crookie. I'll tell you what, there's a couple of answers there. The main one is people who didn't know they were coming here. That gets them good. So, in fact, one of them was it in the last weekend? I hope you guys don't mind this, but we had a car club come in here and it was a mystery tour and they didn't know they were coming here. And this actually happens a bit. We do have a few mystery tours, especially from car clubs. It's quite popular with them. So the people don't know when they're going. And when they get here and they find that they're coming to enemy territory with all those nasty lying people that think that space is real and that we really did go to the moon, some of them get quite upset about it, and they come in here and they'll spend their whole time ranting at me, and not in a nice way either sometimes. So that can get, that's one of the reasons why I say it's the bane of my life, actually, because it can be in good fun, but it can actually get a bit ugly too. So anyway, look, it's 8 o'clock. We probably, let's just see, tell you what, no more questions about the moon hoax theory. We're going to have another show about it. Right, Alan makes a very good point about how many scientists in various places could all be part of the fraud. Right, so hang on, you can see that, but you can. Sorry, Wink, I wasn't. The sun is behind the ship. You can see that, but you can see the United States clear as day. I might have to get back to that one. Sorry, Winky, I'm not quite sure what you're getting at there. But I will try and get back to that when we do a whole show about it. And Wendy's also asked, how do they get through the Van Allen radiation belt? So the radiation belt is the radiation that surrounds the Earth. It looks like this. The short answer to that is that they just went through it quickly. The idea that going through the radiation belts will kill you is just simply wrong. It's more like getting an X-ray at a hospital. It's something that you don't want to spend a lot of time doing. You don't want to hang around in an X-ray room. It is a risk, but it's a risk that is fairly easy to overcome just by being sensible about it. So as long as you don't hang around in the radiation belts, you're fine. It's actually not an issue at all. In fact, Dr. Van Allen, who discovered the radiation belts, was quite vocal about the whole idea, and he was very annoyed that people suggested that it would be deadly to humans, because it's just simply not. So that's the short, easy answer to that one. Righto, so was there one other? Oh, Alan, yeah, that whole thing about how many people are involved in this. And it's not just the scientists, it's the engineers and everyone else. At the height of its program, the Apollo program had close to 500,000 people involved in it. So it's pretty hard to imagine that out of 500,000 people, who have you ever heard come out and say, sort of spill the beans? Well, a couple maybe. Look, here's an example of one person, the guy who actually pretty much started the whole moon hoax theory. What was it? Bill, oh no, I've got the wrong one, sorry. It's this one here, Bill Casing. So when you look at someone like this, and it says Head of Technical Publications, Rocketdyne, and he sells himself as being someone who was in the know, who was part of the Apollo program. Well, it turns out he wasn't really. I mean, he was a technical writer. He didn't really have any direct involvement at all. And in all of these people, you've got maybe half a dozen. To me, it seems much more likely, it's much more parsimonious, Occam's razor, if you want to think like that, it's much more likely that you've got half a dozen people who liked the idea of getting their 15 minutes of fame than they actually really know what they're talking about. So certainly I am not aware of anyone who's got any kind of serious credentials at all who actually worked on the Apollo program coming out and saying that they didn't go there. Not any actual scientists or actual engineers. I have seen a couple who claimed to have been, but on closer inspection it turns out that they were simply lying. So that's another thing to be careful of. There are people who just simply lie about having been involved in the Apollo programs. So we ended up talking about it quite a lot, didn't we? Maybe we won't do another show. Should we? I don't know. We'll think about it. Crookie, you'll just get frustrated. It's hard not to get frustrated. It is. But as I say, look, as long as you're talking about it sensibly and reasonably, it's actually a good discussion. The discussion, the frustrating stuff, the most frustrating person that, or I'm just sort of like an amalgamation type person, the type of person where they say, we didn't go to the moon because of these 6 reasons. So you go through all 6 reasons and you cover each of them. The person that you're talking to agrees, oh yes, I see how that works. Right, now I understand that there would be no stars in the photos. Yes, I get the radiation belt thing. All the rest of it, so you've discounted all of their arguments, but they don't budge. They still think we didn't go to the moon. And if you ask them, well, why now do you think we didn't go to the moon? And it's just, oh, I just don't think they did. I don't trust them. That's a big thing. Well, you know what? I don't trust the American government particularly either, but that's not a reason to think that they didn't go to the moon. There's no logical process there, really. Anyway, look, it's after 8 o'clock. We need to wrap this up. So that's enough about that. Thank you guys for all your contributions there. So I think we will leave it at that. We will have a look at the competition. It's time we did the competition. How are we looking over there, Floyd? Are we ready to do a draw?
Yep.
Okay, so we've got our prize here. So remember, you are in the draw to win Stargazing for Dummies. Great book. Who wants to do the draw tonight? Okay, bring it around the front here, Floyd, and we'll see who has won this awesome book. Remember, if you win the prize, you have to contact me and tell me where I should send it to. If you don't want the book, you can, or just contact me and tell me you don't want it. Maybe we could find a different prize for you, or we could organise to get it to a worthy cause somewhere. So the winner of the prize is Aroha Mahoney. So I hope you enjoy that. We will get that out to you as soon as possible. So well done. One last quick look at the chats and my notes to make sure that we've covered everything that we really wanted to do tonight. It gets people going, that moon hoax thing, doesn't it? Tell you what I might think about doing, let me know through some other means if you think this is a good idea. You can still post in the comment and the chat. Should we organise a separate show, separate from Space Dave Live, which is not a bad idea, and we could actually try and advertise it a bit more widely and see if we can get some people to come in and join in. It's a dangerous one, yeah, but it could be a bit of fun. We could see how that goes. Now, Carol, sorry, look, I forgot about the blimmin' Google Hangouts. Hopeless. So Carol did try and join in. Sorry about that, Carol. Look, we will make a plan to actually put it as part of the show. So what's happening is that we are getting towards the end of the school holidays. I am so tired right now. I am just on autopilot, and I'm actually thinking one of these weeks coming up, I'm going to have a day off. And then after that, I might start thinking a bit more clearly. And we will get back to that. So with that, we do need to wrap it up because we've definitely gone over time. So I want to thank our studio audience very much for coming along on this cold winter night. So thank you, everyone. Good night to you all. Thank you, Floyd, over in the back there for helping us out with all the technical stuff. So from me and everyone here, thank you so much for joining in. We love having your participation. I'm really stoked with the way the chat and everything is going. And we'll be back for more, same time next week. See you later.